Hey everybody, it's been a while I know, but here we are with a video finally on the Land Rover channel. It's also been a while since I put one up on a modelling channel as well, so I'll have to do some catching up. I'm sorry guys. So here we are, it's Monday the 20th of January, on a positively summer-like 3 degrees day. So it seems we have, at the moment we have the choice. You can either have wind, or you can have rain, or you can have freezing cold, or any three. So, or all three together if you want. But yeah, it's either too bloody humid to paint, it's too windy to have the Mustang outside, or it's too bloody cold to paint. It's anyway. This is a video from Mike. Mike is the guy that runs a YouTube channel called Britannica Restorations, and if you haven't seen his channel, go and have a look. He's got a hell of a lot of videos up on there. Mike's from Yorkshire and he moved to Canada a few years ago, and he started his own business and mainly works on Land Rovers, and he has a slogan about making your Land Rover better. So obviously, because he's in Canada and they've got a 15-year import rule, they have to be 15 years old before they can be imported. USA is 25 years. He's never seen a Puma. He knows what a Puma is. He's got a Puma bonnet on his 90 that I think he's now sold, I'm not sure. But anyway, so I thought I'd do a little quick video and a quick walk around mine, because it's in pieces, so he can actually see what these TDCI Pumas are all about. And because he knows these things so well, because he's been working on them forever, he will see a lot of differences. And I think there's some positive, but there's certainly some negative. So without further ado, let's get the camera turned around and we'll go and have a look. And this won't be a long video, but if you know all about Pumas, switch off. There's probably not much for you, but if you like listening to me waffle on or like seeing what I'm doing, then you might want to stick around. So let's get the camera turned around. Okay, first things first. Here's Jess. She likes to hide her ball, and yeah, now I've got parts of the steering column down there. You can see it's made it really interesting for her. So she's having a play around there. There's my little milling machine under its cover. There's my lathe. And then looking around the garage, you can see there's my argon and the CO2 mix and everything. And Land Rover parts and Jeep parts, and Jeep wheels and tools and engine cranes and waste oil, and then the Jeep body, and then there's my jack there. And there we go, just around the garage. And you can see out here it is my Pride and Joy Mustang in grabber blue, which I'm sure Mike has seen a lot of in Canada. So I took the front prop shaft off yesterday because the axle's going to come out, obviously, for a recondition. And look how good the UJs are. It's standing there on its own. So really chuffed with that. So put that down before it falls over. Also, something I don't know if it is different, but this sliding joint doesn't seem to want to come apart. I thought it would just slide out to be re-greased, but it doesn't. I think there's some balls in there or something. But there's some grease nipples in the UJ, so that's a good thing. And they are really tight. So yeah, really cool. So here's the engine block, and this is the 2.4 TDCI. It's got the fuel pump here. The 2.2s don't have that, I believe. And then and you can see I've painted it in this light grey colour. That's because Ford GPWs back in the Second World War had their blocks painted in light grey, so I thought, well, this is a 4x4 with a Ford engine, so light grey will be the colour. Ford don't paint them at all, they just let them rust. So and even the parts that are painted, the paint is absolute crap, and there's bubbles everywhere, and under the paint it just falls off. So you can see there's the block done. So moving out here, looking at the Land Rover, we can see in the engine bay here, obviously there's a major difference. It's got the MT82 gearbox, which is actually the same gearbox as in that one. Different ratios obviously, but it's the same gearbox and design and casings and everything. And you can see we've got down here we've got the central clutch release bearing, and over here you can see with modern times we've got all these plastic push-on connectors and everything, which is in this weather it's a bit dodgy because everything's so brittle. And obviously we've got the clutch line going up there as normal. Big bracket on the bulkhead for putting the ECU, and then pretty standard over here the clutch and the master cylinder and everything. That's all pretty standard, as you can see. This one doesn't have ABS, I chose not to have it. I've had this from brand new, by the way. So there we go, and we can see this is why I'm doing it. We've got rust everywhere all over the chassis. All the way along here you see everything's rusty. I waxed all it all when it was new, but obviously didn't wax all the outside of anything. but I did go around with copper slip, and that was dead handy. So let's go around and have a look. You can see the difference in the bulkhead. Obviously you haven't got the vents in there anymore. Typical corrosion around these parts here, which is just the norm. But everything else, the green, anything that's painted green on this is really nice, but it seems anything that's painted black is bloody awful. So looking at the bulkhead, you can see up here, Mike, inside, this is the area you're always talking about where you get all the condensation, and you can see this here where I'm touching now, that is actually the outer skin, so we can actually breathe now. That's all open, so it can breathe, so you shouldn't get problems with corrosion in this corner on the Pumas like you do on the normal ones. Wiper motor there, I'm guessing this is going to be the same as TD5. There's a plastic sheet there, and you can see the difference in the bulkhead. It's all just a lot simpler, I think. Main difference I've noticed is some clever swine at Land Rover decided, I know what we'll do is we'll, instead of having this part of the tunnel bolt in, we'll weld it in. So yeah, great. So your access to the gearbox now is extremely limited, and getting the heater in and out of these is an absolute swine. So in years to come, when you've got these in Canada, Mike, if you've got to do a heater, quote big, because it is a complete and utter bastard to get out. So there we go. So we can see all around there now, and that's the that's looking at it from this side, and then down in there we can see the access, and there's your remote housing part for the gearbox and for your high-low. So yeah, there we go. That's all all there now, and you can see down there we've got the this is the casing between the gearbox and the transfer box behind it. So let's get around the other side and have a look. Okay, so here we are now around the driver's side, the right hand side, and we've got this alarm unit here, which I think is common to the TD5. A lot of these modern type connectors now on the Pumas with the sort of cam lock thing, and then we've got some relays there, and obviously under the seat, under the driver's seat, we've got there's a little fuse box in there, and then we've got some more wiring. So that's all sort of held up and out the way. You shouldn't get too wet in there unless you go really deep wading. But as I say, the ECU is on the back of the engine, behind the back of the engine, up high, so that's pretty good. These clamps are just cheap and utter crap. You know, they're awful. So and the only reason that's clamped tightly is because I haven't got the top on properly. If the top was put on properly, it wouldn't clamp very tightly at all, like that, you see, so it can still all rattle around. Handbrake is normal, I believe, nothing different there. And this is something I know you'll be interested in, is this linkage. Now, they've got this, as I say, there's this aluminium housing here bolted to the top of the gearbox. You can see down in there. Gearbox is sat on an axle stand. And this is the lever, obviously. And you can see the linkage is basically there. And you've got an arm going down. So this is your diff lock operating at the bottom there, you can see. So that's nice and simple. And then the actual high-low is on a lever. See if I can get the camera lens down in there. Where are we? There's a lever down here, you can see, and it's going back down here to the connector in the side of the transfer box for your high-low. So it's still the LT230, obviously the late type, and it's called the quiet version or something. Show you some more of the bulkhead. You got the footwells and everything. Something I've noticed on mine, which is something obviously to look out for, the thick rubber padding under the floor here has been squeezed out, so I've had water coming up through here, and you can see we've got a little bit of corrosion down in there, but you know, cold it already. No corrosion down here at all. So this has only done 16,000 miles and it's never been off road, so it's sort of pretty well mollycoddled and looked after. But seat box, I think, is the same as everybody's seen. This is the bit where Mike always says this has to be tapered, so you have to be careful if ever you repair one of these. But you can see we've got pop rivets all down here, which is pretty standard, and then spot welds everywhere else, except for obviously across here where there's still boxes going. Bulkhead, I think, is just the same, so that's all standard. I'll be taking this out and putting one of those bars in to give myself a bit more seat room. Door panels, same as TD5, I believe. You can see these have got all watermarks down them where I've had the doors open in the rain, so so that's what that is. Let's get underneath and show you the gearbox, Mike. Okay, so here we can see there's the great big MT22 gearbox. and then coming along here, that's the back of the gearbox, and then we've got the transfer box, and just here, if I get my finger in there to point, where are we? Just here is the conversion casing to go from the back of the gearbox to the transfer box there. Now, one of the problems with these is in there is a shaft that converts a very large splined hub that bolts into the back of the gearbox into the input shaft for the transfer box, and they wear out. And a telltale sign is, you can see this here, this sort of semicircular hole. If you look around there for brown staining, that's normally a sign that there's some rust in there, and that's one of the big problems with these on all the axle flanges and on the actual flange, the output flange here itself. They don't lubricate anything, so it's just dry and it all rusts and everything. It's a pain. And it's the same up here on the front of the bell housing. I don't know if I can get it in shot. No, the light's killing it, but all you've got there is a semicircular drain. So there's no wading plugs in these at all, so everything's just going to get filled with water. And as I say, with it greased, it's going to be, with it not greased, shall I say, it's going to be even worse. Okay, then, just to finish up, this is what I was talking about, Mike. You can see down here, there's those semicircular cutouts where they're allowing anything in the bell housing to drain. But as I say, you get no wading plugs, so if you do get stuck in deep water, the water is going to come up through there, okay, into your bell housing. And people may think that, okay, you've got an airlock, but you haven't. You've got a big opening up here, and you've got another opening here for the starter motor, so you don't have an airlock at all. And then the other issue you've got is, if you look at the top of the gearbox, you can see here, the actual breather for the gearbox goes into that area in the bell housing, which is in there. So if you do get stuck in deep water, best have a look at the gearbox oil, because as the gearbox cools and there's water in the bell housing, it's probably going to suck water into the gearbox. So and another thing worth remembering on these is you don't fill the oil up to the level of the fill plug. You have to measure out 2.2 litres of oil and put it in there. You don't fill them up to the level, so they're not like to the bottom of the filler plug. So that's something. And another thing to consider is always take the filler plug out first before you take the drain plug out, because sometimes it's seized. So there we go then, Mike. That's my video for you for the Puma. You can see some other differences, I'm sure. And there we go. Oh, and by the way, you're talking about heaters. The heater in the Puma apparently is a 90% improvement over a TD5. So there we go. They're going to be great for you in Canada.